capital services that we borrow money like that. So these rooms like. That's just.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
There's a
See,
lot of
Amazon.
stuff on Amazon, and that's why I was like, well, do we like.
Hope so. I can see me.
Because do you remember the?
Yep.
Set up the training, super secret CCSD password, so
Testing.
sure.
We got you, Dr. Schroep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's-
Welcome, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the January 13th, 2025 Charles City Community School District School Board at 5:30 p.m. Danielle, if you would, roll call.
President Keithrick,
Here.
Vice President Mack,
Here.
Board Member Dr. Schroep,
Here.
Board Member Fox. Here. Board Member Yeager. Here.
All present. Dara, if you would read the district mission and vision statement.
Our mission to challenge all students to achieve their full potential through engaging, responsive educational experiences that inspire engagement, critical thinking, and collaboration. Our vision to develop learners who are competent, compassionate, problem solvers.
Okay, we'll take a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Been Probably moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of approval, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now move on to welcoming of visitors and we'll take public comment. Anyone who would like to speak, go ahead and step forward. Will be limited to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay, my name is Jim Lundberg. I live in the school district. Back in April 1983, a 22-year-old version of myself interviewed to be a teacher at Charles City High School. It was one of 5 interviews that I had that spring and one of several offers, excuse me. One of the many reasons I chose Charles City was because the 22-year-old facility was second to none. And yes, the original building and I are the same age. I spent 40 years of my adult life growing old with this magnificent facility. So I have a very close relationship with number 1 Comet Drive. We've grown old together. And like me, this facility is showing its age. I've sat in on countless meetings over the years discussing how to expand, reduce, repurpose, remodel, reuse, or replace this building. This evening, the board of directors will be taking a vote on spending $4 million to 1, upgrade the high school's HVAC, 2, make the bathrooms ADA compliant, 3, replace, repair the ventilation and drainage on the north end. Please think very seriously about your vote this evening. If this proposal passes tonight, we are looking at least 2 years before the project will probably be completed. Then what? Do we consider what to do with the electrical system? Do we replace it or just purchase more extension cords until we can find an outlet that works? Do we replace the plumbing in the school so that floor drains and sinks don't back into classrooms, lavatories, and locker rooms? Or do we just keep mopping and hiring local plumbing firms to clean the pipes? Do we consider the air quality? There are mold issues. There's still asbestos in this school and there's no way that any professional can guarantee it's 100% controlled. Have you taken into consideration the potential for exposing students and staff to asbestos during an HVAC remodeling project? Are you aware of House File 2412, which requires public schools to test for radon and take action if necessary? In fact, all schools must test all classrooms and attendance centers for radon by July 1st, 2027. Board of Education, I encourage you not to spend money on quick fixes. We need remodeling new construction projects done for the long-term sustainability of our district. I don't know what that looks like personally, but I'd personally rather have you invest $4 million on long-term solutions than short-term fixes. We have new leadership in our schools administration that could guide us through this process, and I commend the school board on these hires. Let's take a step back this evening and develop a long-term solution to meet the needs of our community, staff, faculty, and most importantly, our students. Thank you.
Have any further public comment?
I'd like to make one note, just kind of comical thinking about Jim running around with extension cords, trying to plug them in. It just made me kind of giggle, because I'm sure that when he was a teacher, he probably actually did that once or twice, trying to help students get things done. So.
We'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll say it.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move on to a vote. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the administrator and director superintendent reports. I believe we're going to start with Danielle on the audit report.
Yep, so the FY 24 audit report is attached. It's a pretty standard report for FY 24. There were just a few things noted in the findings from Alex Barr with Anderson Larkin. And those two items were addressed by the previous SBO and our auditor and fixed with help from the Iowa Department of Education. Alex Barr with Anderson Larkin, our audit firm, will be zooming in the February meeting to go over that report in more detail. And if there's any further questions, he will be able to answer those. He was gonna zoom in tonight, but he had another meeting that he had, so he couldn't come tonight, so.
Very good. We will move on to Dr. Bernard's superintendent report.
Well, I had a great week. I got out of the classrooms last week and saw some great instructional learning going on, and more teachers, especially at Lincoln, they made a really concerted effort to write learning targets on the board, and there's great research around how that anchoring the lesson in learning targets and the standards can really help raise scores. So I was really proud of the work that Lincoln in particular has been doing on helping to raise achievement with that. Really looking forward to seeing the first set of assessment results that come in the end of January. Also want to congratulate our robotics team. I know Josh is going to talk about that a little later, but they did a great job down in Waterloo and are advancing to the state level. One of our two teams is advancing to the state level. So I'd also like to thank Patrick Nyberg and the volunteers, the parent volunteers, for doing a great job with our kids this year. And so looking forward to the kids competing in Ames, and I have a hunch I might be going to Ames at this rate. So very excited about that. On a personal note, my wife's team at IC, future Comets, will also be going to state, one of the two teams that she had to. So all very excited. So anyway, it was a short report. We have a lot on the agenda tonight. So
Can I ask Danielle a quick question?
Yeah.
Just wanted to get your feedback on Anderson Larkin. I think this might be the first year that we've used them from
No, we used them last for FY 23 as well.
So what did you think of, like, how did you feel about the report, how they did?
Well, with being my first year and going through this process, I don't have much to compare it to. They were very easy to work with. I don't know how many other firms out there. I know there are a lot of issues with audit firms and getting reports back on time that a lot of school districts are running into. Anderson Larkin has gotten us our audit report these last 2 years on time, so that is kind of a plus side.
Thanks.
We'll move on to new business, action items, starting with subpoint A. Take a motion to approve SBRC request in the amount of $479,652 for at-risk dropout prevention, modified supplemental amount for FY 25.
So where does the money come from?
So we get spending authority for this. Yep. And so, by turning this in for our modified at-risk dropout dollars, and so the state, provides money.
Mhm.
Okay, so that was my
Yeah.
question. Just,
Yep.
is it a taxing piece or is it a state fund?
State funded.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and it's a smaller amount, so this gives us some supplemental.
This is something we max out every year to make sure.
We do, yeah.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then are they specifically categorically identified to be spent in certain ways, or is it do it however we want?
There are a lot of restrictions on at-risk dollars, yes.
Are they eligible to be used for, like a school resource officer?
I would have to look that up. I'm not positive on, I think at-risk dollars have to be specifically for students that meet certain criteria, so I would say probably no.
Okay. All right, thanks. That answers my question.
I'll make the motion to approve SBRC requesting the amount of $479,652 for at-risk dropout prevention modified supplemental amount for fiscal year 25.
I'll second.
Been properly moved in second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, vote by stating aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on, we'll go to good news at Washington Elementary School.
Thank you for having me, and we have a lot of great things going on. I'm just picking one thing to spotlight tonight.
Just, could you just identify who you are, just for people who maybe don't?
Sure. So my name is Joe Carney. I'm the principal at Washington. Thank you. And I believe Dr. Bernard is going to pull up some pictures. So we have a couple of teachers that are working on improving math instruction. We have, all of our teachers are, but they're specifically reading a book called Building Thinking Classrooms, which is a book by Peter Liljedahl. A lot of it is more advanced than what kindergarten and first grade would do, but some of the things that they are looking, kind of the big pieces of it is that they are designed to be really big thinking tasks for kids. Groups are randomized and kids work in groups together. And then the big thing is using vertical writing surfaces. So there's a lot of research that shows standing, writing on vertical erasable surfaces, could be windows, could be, we have some kind of adhesive whiteboards that we've purchased for kids to be able to do this. So just kind of walk through this a little bit. So this is an example of our calendar that we have through our math program, and we do something called Number Corner with it. So each month we have a calendar like this. Each day there's some sort of pattern that they have to keep track of. So there was a teddy bear on day one. This is kindergarten. And then we have the buttons, and the colors of the buttons change each day. And kids have to make predictions about what the buttons will look like the next day, what the color of the sweater will look like, and then how it will change over time. So you can see they were all blue. Then there was 1 pink, 2 pink, 3 pink. The color of the sweater changed, and then it went to 4 buttons on the 11th. So there's different things like this every month where kids have to kind of notice patterns, make predictions, talk with each other about these types of things. So one of our kindergarten teachers, Megan Labarge, she created a task, a creative task to go with this and using the vertical writing surfaces. And the question was, if the teddy bear has 3 buttons and they are only black and white, how many different ways can they be arranged? All right, and so that was kind of the deep thinking task that our kindergartners had to go with. And if you advance one slide there, you'll see some examples of how our kids did this. So these vertical surfaces are in kind of the back corner of our building. And so they kind of take their whole class and they go and work. But you can see the thinking that goes on with these kids. And writing out and drawing out their thinking. Really a lot of positive conversation going on. What's nice is that they're all kind of in the same area together, and so they can if they get stuck, they can sort of look and see how other people might be starting, and then they can get started as well. The best thing about this from a teacher perspective is you're not really giving answers. It's more of a kind of a keep thinking response. So you might give them some clues about how they're doing, or maybe like a tiny little bit to get them to think further. And we have some more examples of pictures as well, but partners work together to come up with this, and there were 8 different ways that the buttons could be arranged, and you can see that they came up with those together. So just really excited for our teachers to continue their learning, and these kind of big meatier tasks. This sounds simple to us, but to a kindergarten student, it's very complicated. And so being able to think through it and work together is a really great thing that we're working on. So wanted to share that with you tonight. And there's some more examples of our.
You know, how long have they been implementing this? new
So
technique?
they have just been reading this book. So I have one kindergarten and one first grade teacher who have been reading this book, and it's probably only been they don't do this every day. They've probably done it 4 or 5 times this year. So just kind of dipping their toes right now.
What do the kids think of it?
They love it. Yeah, they love the chance to be able to be up and around and being social with each other and kind of, you know, that we do. A lot of the things that we do in kindergarten and first grade are very repetitive. And so this is something different. It's kind of a bigger task that they can work on and kind of work with for a long time.
And it sounds like they physically have to leave the classroom, which
They
is
do.
a big
It's
trip for a kid.
exciting, yeah. It's a field trip.
Yeah,
They're part of this building.
Do they work in groups of 2? Because it looks like every picture had 2 of them.
yeah, 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah, usually.
So do you see them having to kind of negotiate with each other about how to do it and who's gonna draw and everybody kind of taking a role?
Yeah, if you kind of get this with older kids, so there are specific rules. So in my previous district, we did this as well. So when you work with older kids, you'd have groups of 3 or 4. Whoever has the marker can't talk. Only the other people can talk, and the person with the marker writes what they say. So it gets more advanced the older the kids get, and so there are other things that he kind of promotes in his book. But with kindergarten, this is, like I said, just very elementary and just getting started with it. But really, really good collaboration and problem solving.
So this is something you brought versus?
This is not something I brought. They got into this. Actually, I think Mr. Bovis, who was here last year, started a book study last year, and then they got into it this year.
Is there expansions upon this?
As far as the book, or?
Yeah, like, you know, this one is specifically dots and it had the calendar, right? So they kind of had 2 different pieces that tie together, and then they look at something and then they go try to figure out an answer to a problem.
Yeah.
Are there other parts that add on to that?
Not necessarily to this problem, but there are people who are creating tasks for this. There's people all over the world that have read this book and started implementing some of these things. And so people create tasks, and you can find them all online, or you can create your own as well. This was just something that she thought of with the calendar pattern that she noticed. And so she decided to create a problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. And I think I'm up next too. right? Okay,
Move on
perfect.
to the next point for the 2025-26 preschool proposal.
Okay, well, we did this last year, right? We came together and we talked about changing the preschool structure and plan, and we're gonna do it again. So this year, and if you want to go forward one, thank you. Yeah, so last year we went from 4 full school day program to 4 half-day programs. The reason for that was we thought we could maximize our instructional time in a half-day program, kind of get rid of the pieces that were extra, like rest time, and be able to make it more financially feasible to have our preschool program. We went from 3 classrooms to 2. We were able to fit, we ended up with less students, but we were able to fit the number of students we had last year in 2 classrooms because we were going to that half-day program. So we could get up to 20 students in each half of the day. And then not really a change, but St. John's and Central were and still are community partners this year. So that's kind of where we were last year. The challenges that we have faced this year, we do have a decline in enrollment. You might remember last year, we decided to move from the full day to half day program. There was there was a transportation messaging issue that we went through where we first said we were not going to provide transportation, then we said we would. And I do think a lot of people made decisions based on that first knowledge that they were not going to have transportation. I do think also the half-day program is challenging for families to be able to get their kids here and picked up and find care for them. And then the other piece, we are able to meet all of our instructional needs, but it is tight. And so we're kind of trying to find the happy medium between the full-day program and the half-day program. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now as far as challenges. If you go forward. So the goals that we kind of set, we met as a preschool advisory committee. So that consisted of one of my teachers, one of our community partner teachers, one parent, Dr. Murnite, and myself. And we talked about our preschool goals being just a really good bridge to kindergarten. We want this to be sort of a step up from maybe a 3-year-old program to that full day kindergarten program. And so we're shooting for about 3/4 day a program. And we also want this to be a really positive first experience for families. We don't want this to be a hardship for people to be able to find care or transportation. And because of that, we want to engage families early and keep them in Charles City schools. The one thing that's different with preschool is that you can go anywhere. You can open enroll wherever you want. And so we want to be able to have people stay with us if they choose to. So we looked at quite a few different solutions here. One of them was just simply going back to what we did previously. I personally didn't like that. Our teachers didn't love that either. And we talked about that, but it wasn't really what people wanted as a first choice. We talked about continuing with the half-day program and then potentially offering childcare in the school building, whether that's provided by the district or partnered with the Y or TLC. And for a lot of different reasons, that really wasn't a possible solution. And then half-day program partnered with childcare out of the school building. So like potentially everybody goes to TLC and we just partner with them. TLC, staffing wise, not really able to manage that, especially to come into our building. And then the Y is not licensed for kids at that age. And so that really wasn't a possibility for us as well. So those were some solutions that we considered. And then if we go forward, this is some feedback that we got from that committee. So our schedule that we'll talk about in just a minute, the teachers are very much in support of that. We do have some nearby districts that offer full day programs, but they are 4 days per week, similar to what we did last year. And then we heard from the parent on our committee and had heard from others that we need earlier and clearer communication regarding registration. So last year was my first year. I probably didn't do it as well as I should have. And so that message didn't get out as well as we wanted to. One of the challenges with that is that we know we have a lot of new families that join us in preschool. And so the challenge is how do we get this message in their hands? Because they don't get our newsletter, they don't follow us on Facebook, they don't get our dojo messages. So how do we get it in their hands? So all of that is kind of a preamble to the proposed schedule here. We are looking at having a 5-hour day, but 5 days per week. So we will offer preschool every day of the week from 8:10 to 1:10. This will allow students to have 2 meals at school every day. So right now they're getting either breakfast or lunch, whether they're AM or PM. We still will provide the transportation to DHS registered centers in the middle of the day, at 1:10 at the end of the preschool day. And what this will allow is it will allow for instructional time for teachers, but it will also allow for more planning time for teachers. So right now we have school on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Teachers have all of Wednesday to plan, which is great. but it doesn't really help that in the moment planning that you need. And so with this, they're gonna have 2.5 hours at the end of each day to plan for the following day. So that it'll kind of benefit students and staff and hopefully families as well, being a 5-day program. Let's see, I think there's. Yes, so because we are in school 5 days per week, it should be a lower childcare expense for families. It definitely will compared to the half-day program. What will be nice is that our paraeducators will be able to collaborate with our teachers more. Right now, our special education paraeducators do not work on Wednesdays and our classroom associates don't work on Wednesdays. And so there's never really a time where they can sit down and talk with the paraeducators and work with them about how best to support students. And so as part of this proposal, it would be increasing the hours for our special education paraeducators. Right now, they are the only ones in my building who do not receive benefits. And so they would go up to 30 hours, which would be a 6-hour day. And again, that gives them time to collaborate with the teacher to best plan for kids. And we have a lot of needs in our preschool and it benefits the students when we do that. We have had very preliminary discussions with IC and Head Start about being community partners with us. And kind of still waiting to hear from them if that's going to be a possibility. And then St. John's, they have a licensed teacher this year who is going to be leaving and actually going to IC. So if they are not able to find a licensed teacher, then they would no longer be able to be a community partner with us. So
What do you mean by community partner?
so basically they get funding through the district to have students. And so we work with them.
So the kids go to that, like a private preschool, but we pay for that?
We don't pay for it. The funding just
state-
flows through the
The
district
state
and
pays for it.
goes to
So
them.
it's still 3-4-year-old preschool, but they're in a
Correct.
private preschool setting.
Correct. Yeah, and then they can pay for additional time at that center if they choose to.
And they have to be a licensed teacher with early childhood development endorsement, which is kind of a very specific teaching certificate to get, so they're kind of like unicorns.
Does Central have that?
Central does. Last year, they kind of did a patchwork thing with subs that was kind of a mess. They couldn't find one. This year, they do have a licensed teacher full time. Yeah. Yeah, so that's gonna be the tricky part for St. John's, is finding a licensed teacher. So as I talked about the communication plan last year, there could be improvement there. And so what we're planning to do is to open registration February 3rd. We will send information home via our weekly newsletter that everybody gets in the school building. We'll send it home via School Dojo as well. I have posters that I'm going to be printing up and putting around the community on, message boards, different things and different businesses. And then Dr. Bernard and I have kind of been working to look into newspaper ads or postcards, different things that we can use, Facebook, geolocation. I know, Josh, you brought that up about potentially like targeting people within Charles City to see ads about registering for preschool. And so all of those are kind of still up in the air. And then February 13th, which will be after registration, but I'll go on the radio to talk more about our preschool changes and talk about how to register.
Because the family could register up until what, August?
Yeah, and there's really no end. Yeah, it's more just to give us some planning so that we can know when you're coming.
So I can maybe just paraphrase a couple things you mentioned.
Please.
So part of the reason that we're talking about this now is that we want to get communication out as early as possible.
Absolutely.
So we get parents and caregivers and everybody information about what our plan is and what we're going to do and how we're going to change so that they can make an informed decision when it's time to make that decision. We're going to open up registration here fairly soon,
Yes.
right? So that we'll start knowing how we're going to communicate that plan with as much people as we can. And then I had a couple questions. So you mentioned TLC. Is there any funding dollars, and this might be a better question, where if they were to help with childcare or help with transportation or help with teaching, that we can cover some of those costs for the additional staff that they would have? Because you said that they just don't have the capabilities in terms of staff to be able to do that.
I think it's hard for them to commit to the number of staff that they would need. Yeah, and it kind of depends if you would do it in their building or ours. Because then you'd be splitting their staff.
Well, we own both buildings, right? So we can.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, so it's given.
Yeah, no. I did talk to them about potentially this plan and how that would affect their staffing. They said it's really not very different than what they already do, because we have 2 classes in the morning. Many of the kids go there for the afternoon already, so they're able to handle the students that we have with this plan.
And I had another meeting, if I could just jump in, another meeting with them. I don't know if you were at that meeting with Dr. Schilling and myself. But they expressed too that they can't find people. So they have the capacity to hire more people, and they've been trying to find a director, they've been trying to find additional staff, because they do have some kids on a waiting list to come in even today that they would add to. There are shared visions grants, and there's some early childhood grants around the state, so there may be some funds that could help with that. Absolutely, so we'll keep looking at that, but they just can't find the people.
Right.
So you said, I assume that their director also has to have special certifications and endorsements to be able to do that, or no?
You know, what's interesting is the classroom teachers have to have licensing, but then sometimes directors, depending on the scenario, don't necessarily have to have the same kind of licensing, which is unique for preschool. In our world, you have to have more licensing as you become a director or a supervisor.
Yeah, and some centers have a director/teacher, so then they would have that endorsement, but yeah, if they're strictly the director, no, there's not any.
So right now there are 2 preschool teachers plus a special ed preschool.
Correct.
And are you thinking you'll need another?
It really just depends on how many kids we get, yeah.
You won't know that until August.
That's why we want to open it so early, is so we kind of have a better idea. If we start to get into the 50s for kids, we're gonna need a 3rd classroom, or we'll have a waiting list. We always have to leave room open for students with IEPs, as we get kids that turn 3 and then come join us every year. So I would say around that 50 mark would be about 3 full classrooms roughly. Because we usually get 6 to 8 kids throughout the year with IEPs.
And we're in a good place financially, cash wise, because the funds will come a year in the rear. So if next year we have 55 students, we'll actually get paid for this year's count for that number of preschool students. So we're in a good place financially, that this is the year we try and expand again in a more comprehensive way to get more kids in the program. And then we get the funding the following year.
Dr. Bernard, could I ask you to just kind of summarize what we're seeing here on the agenda for the folks that are here? With the cost and additional pairs and things like that, just so.
Oh, sure. So in the executive sum, which is part of the board packet and it should be online too, it's an attachment online. But I did spell out the cost of increasing paraprofessionals if they both chose to take insurance. That could be additional cost next year, around $8,700 as we get the final numbers from insurance companies still. So it'll be around that $8,700 for those 2 employees if they choose to take that insurance. And then if we were to add another, we hope we add another 25 students, then we'd have that blessing of more kids. And with that, we'd have a teacher plus additional adults. And so then that could increase the cost for that 1 year. Potentially another $100,000 to be fully transparent, but we're in a good place, cash wise, to do that next year to kind of get that back. And then those students tend to stay with us for all 13 years. So did I get most of it?
Yep. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what we were.
Yeah.
So we're good financial place, cover that. Sounds like a great idea for a fun feeder program to set us up for years to come, so.
I think the 5-day a week, it will be something that a lot of districts don't offer, and so I'm hopeful that will be attractive to families.
As a parent myself, that's what I looked for, was the 5 days, so I didn't have to find daycare.
Absolutely.
Is there any further questions?
No, I would just like to thank you for revisiting, kind of reflecting and looking at it and taking the time to meet.
Yeah,
It was it's a really good way to say, hey, we looked at what we did and we think we can do better.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think this is a good win-win for everybody, so I hope that's the case.
Do we need to take an action on this?
At that point, I'll take a motion.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. That was fair.
Very good. We have a motion to approve preschool proposal in front of us.
And make a motion that the board approves the changes to the preschool program for the 2025-26 school year.
I'll second.
Been properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move to vote. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will then move on to the next agenda item, setting a calendar hearing for February 10th for the 25, 26, and 26, 27 school calendar years.
We have a chance to look at this at the communications meeting, is that right?
Policy.
Policy, thank you.
Policy, yeah.
I knew it was one of those, thank you. And I thought they did a really nice job of kind of putting together a plan and looking at the dates. And we specifically kind of had some conversations around the Christmas time. I don't know how everyone else's day was, but that return to Friday was tricky. And so moving that to start on the following Monday, the 5th was, I think it's a great idea. And then giving those, those weeks off between the holidays. So I think it looks good. And then we used to, for some reason, have graduation over on Memorial Day weekend, which was a terrible idea. It took us, I don't know, for a long time. We were doing that. Now we finally fixed that, which is great. And we do that. So it's awesome.
Dr. Benight and I discussed in our agenda meeting that I asked, how are we feeling about the early outs on Wednesdays? As a parent, and what I'm hearing from some others, it's been a very beneficial thing for planning and prep. And the biggest thing I've heard from kids is the 2:55 dismissal is incredible, especially for athletes. It gives them an hour of study table before they have to be at practice, and kids are keeping up. And it sounds like we'll hear a report in time to come of how those grades are showing. Hopefully our MAPS testing will show the same. So, do we have a motion on the calendar?
I'd make a motion to approve the draft calendar for.
To set a
Oh,
hearing.
sorry, we're gonna set a hearing. I'd make a motion to,
The calendar hearing, February 10th.
I'm gonna think, a public hearing for the February 10th at 5:30 PM for the proposed school calendars.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll move on to agenda item E, resolution for fixing a date for a hearing on the proposed issuance of approximately $4 million school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds.
So I'd make a motion to table this agenda item until the time where we can review it and look at other options.
I'll second that. Not to say that this isn't something that needs to be addressed for the high school, because we know with a lot of the conversations that we've had over the past 10+ years that it is something. But then to also, and I don't know how you systematically do this, but to try to make sense of what we've done in the last 2 years, what the engineering firm has kind of found, and then looking at what the proposed plan.
Been probably moved and second. Is there any further discussion?
If,
I'm gonna
can,
chime in here. So,
Bruce,
go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yep.
I can't see anything that's going on, so I would say that I hope that we vote this down. We've been waiting to do these projects for over a decade now. They need to be done. The items brought up by Mr. Lundberg, I don't agree with every one of those at all. And I think that we should start this project. Anything that we do is going to take time to get started with, and whether we do this now, it'll take time to order, get materials, get started. And the longer we wait, it's going to take even longer. So it, to me, doesn't make sense to put these infrastructure items off. The building itself is not falling down, it's not crumbling. The building is solid. There are certain infrastructure things that Jerry has talked to us about at length that need some updating and repairs and maintenance, and that should be done. That's my
Question
opinion.
from audience? Is that okay?
What's that?
No,
Normally it would come after the discussion from the motion.
You can make a comment
you can make a
or a
statement.
statement or ask a question of any of us.
I was, I have been told that there were pledges made towards the auditorium, and I was just wondering if going forward, if the pledges were at some point not valid anymore.
Like if they were time
Yes.
sensitive,
That's
so that would be a
Could be
concern,
someone-
if
Yes.
it's just for time.
right.
Yeah, there's someone here that can answer that. I cannot. I am gonna make my comment on this as well. I'm with Dr. Schroed on this, that I feel that since I joined this board a little over a year ago, I've been accused of kicking the can down the road and everything else under the sun for not making improvements to the school. This is an extremely tedious process we've gone through. We've saved thousands of dollars by using the engineering firm we have, and we've gone as in-depth as the board would allow. As you remember, we brought the proposal forward and asked for other items to be evaluated. The board chose to narrow that down, which is fine, we did so, and we found ulterior motives or methods of evaluating those systems. As far as the septic system, it's been evaluated. There is no flaws with the exception of one spot in here that they see no issue in the forthcoming years. Electrical will be addressed with the main breaker system. Yes, there are some areas that we have exterior conduit and things of that nature. There is no major defects to the electrical systems in any of our areas that are of concern at this point and not functioning, that cannot be managed or mitigated. And in saying that, we also acknowledge the fact that there's no sense in doing those kind of electrical upgrades without a major construction project, because at that point you would have to tear apart walls, rerun electrical runs and things of that nature. I'll also touch on the question about air testing. With the HVAC system that our engineers have proposed, it was addressed in our work session that they will improve air conditioning or air testing, air quality tenfold the way it sounds, with better ability to mitigate everything that's coming in and out. You're getting fresh air, getting rid of bad air. As far as the asbestos, it has all been evaluated as part of this evaluation for the project. There is no asbestos in the areas that will be remodeled or worked on. So the majority of the issues with the popcorn ceiling and things of those nature that people have worried about for years has already been started in the process of being scraped off. There is no asbestos. It was evaluated along with our radon at the time. And so I understand the passion for new and improved. I really do. And I want to see that. With this proposal, and I will also urge all the other board members here, what we're proposing tonight is for a public hearing to move forward with this process. The longer we delay this, the higher the price goes, the harder things get. Mr. Lumberg made a good point that this stuff won't happen or be completed within the next 2 years. You are correct, because we've delayed it this far and tried to make sure that we crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's. In that time, what will happen? Very valid question. With this proposal, we will intend to upgrade all of our major headaches from HVAC, major electrical concerns. The septic concern down here in the art room for the clay traps will be upgraded as well. Along with that, it frees up nearly $500,000 in our maintenance budget during the next however many years, because By doing these things like the air handlers, the HVAC units and things like those, we put $400,000 to $450,000 back into our maintenance budget that we typically would denote for one of those systems every year. And if you remember when we started this proposal, we would have had to drag this out 12 years to do it on Jerry's budget. We're talking about doing all this in the next 2 years, putting $500,000 back in his budget, which there in fact lies the option of an incredibly gifted staff around here to make improvements to aesthetics, whether it be remodeling of rooms, upgrading paint, upgrading facilities. Not to mention, we're gonna get the ADA bathrooms up to code. Everything will be 100% air conditioned. Everything will improve efficiency to 80 to 90, even 100% in some areas with the way the plan is. So again, I would urge all of you to consider your vote here. I understand where we're at and wanting to hear what's happened, what's going to happen and how we're planning it. But as for tonight's agenda item, we're strictly talking public hearing. Beyond the public hearing is where we go in to decide whether we vote to move forward or not. I also want to bring forward to all of you that I asked Dr. Bernard to update our agenda, as you see here, to $4 million. The reason we chose to do that is that it doesn't trip us up before we even get started. If we would have gone with the basic 3.5 that was originally discussed, there's always the chance with the delay in things that things will go up or we'll need an additional engineer. Along with that 4 million, we discussed in both facilities and finance committee, we would be comfortable moving our saved dollars that are currently we have 2.5 million in reserves that we have always kept there. With the position of what this would do for our district and mitigating the major maintenance risks, we were comfortable with moving that reserve to 2 million and allowing another $500,000 there if we had any overages or unexpected expenses, and still maintaining 2 million. Along with this plan, the biggest thing to remember when I hear the question, then what? This plan allows us to pay off the middle school as well as this project by the year 2030, 2031, 2032 at latest, making our district debt-free and running at its optimal level for the buildings we currently have. In doing so, as a representative of the community and the constituents who have reached out to me, I feel that it truly does the best job of demonstrating to the community that's been stressed through taxes over the last few years that this district and its board is very capable of handling their money and handling it wisely. We will be debt-free, at which time we can then use these funds that we're borrowing again to leverage once again if we so choose. And as you asked before, Josh, before our work session, how far can we stretch that? We heard the other night that we can stretch that out to 25 years and $14 million. Would it be the best choice of our resources? I personally don't feel so, but it is the option of the board. So with that, I'll leave it to you guys. There is a motion and a second to table.
Bruce, just one more quick thing if I could. I agree with all of that. I like the idea that we would be debt-free between now and that. We could talk about other things that the school district might want to do, and we might have a better idea about what our enrollment's going to be. The county's not growing, so the school district's not getting larger. So we have to be careful and know what our enrollment's going to be and better plan. And I would say this is not a short-term fix. These items that we're going to be repairing and maintaining are for the long term. This is absolutely not a short-term fix. This is responsible use, responsible taking care of the infrastructure for the long term of the building. The building is solid. So
These repairs also allow for, in the event we were to use new construction or things of that nature, all of these items would be able to be relocated to said new construction and save us the money in the long run. So I'll
Okay.
leave it at that, and I will move forward with the fact that we have a first and a second on the motion to table the resolution of fixing date for a hearing on the proposed issuance of approximately $4 million. And I will ask if there's any further discussion.
So I think this is a good, another clarification point. So when this is talking about a hearing, we're looking at it would be going till the February meeting would be when it revisits. In between January and February. It would
Yeah.
just be pending an item.
Right, so, so then we need to then put it in the paper, on the 21st, sometime between the 21st and the 30th. We have to put it in the paper with it's, no less or less than 10 days, no more than 20 days, before the next meeting. So we'll put it in the paper, next week. And then, that's a hearing at that next meeting, but then we don't finalize it at that next meeting. We have to allow 15 days for public to give additional comment or thoughts. And then at the following meeting, we could then finalize and approve. So it's a 3-meeting process.
And Bruce, if I may, can I request a roll call vote, please?
Yes, you may. I will ask for a vote. All in favor? Do you want to do it by raise of hands? You want to go roll call? We'll go roll
I'd
call.
like roll call.
Okay, President Kubrick,
Nay.
Vice President Mack,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Schroep,
No.
Board Member Fox,
Yeah,
Board Member Yeager.
Yay.
Based on the roll call vote, the motion to table the item of resolution for fixing a date for the hearing of the proposed issuance of $4 million school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds. The motion has passed. The item will be tabled until the February 10th meeting. Correct?
So we can table it to, it was tabled till it was such a time that we could bring it back up, so. Didn't have a specific date. So I don't know what the Robert's Rules of Order, if it's somebody on the affirmative has to bring it back to the table.
Does it have to come from one of the people that has to table, or can it be bring back?
I'll look into that, yeah.
Yeah, it was
we
just
move
tabled.
on. Move on to agenda item letter F, facilities project for year 2025-2026. I will just make the comment that this is something that Jerry has already proposed to us. I just asked that it be pulled out for everyone to see. This is what we yearly do. I brought it out of the consent agenda so that it was completely transparent, the kind of money that Jerry spends and where it gets spent.
Maybe you know this, Bruce, how often do we buy Suburbans or vans?
With our fleet, you want to update 1 to 2 a year.
Okay.
So that's for the, Suburbans.
Suburbans, because we have, I think we have like 2 or 3 Suburbans. maybe?
We do multiple Suburbans. The van is special. The van is a wheelchair lift van, which is brand new.
Okay.
And we had a chance to see that. And so what's really nice about that is for some of our trips to special services for students, we'll be able to use somebody without a full bus driving license. So that could be a huge cost savings for the district. So Jerry is on his way back. I think he had to drive. He's been texting me. He had to drive to New Hampton. So, but I think I can speak to most of any of the questions on these items too.
Take a motion for approval of dismissal.
I make a motion to approve the expenditures listed in the agenda for 2024-25.
Just did that. 16.
Oh, yeah, good call. That's last year. So I'm making an amended 25-26. No, well, that's for next year, right?
I think he had to do it the remainder of this year. Didn't he? At least for the remainder of this year.
He's done it.
Two.
Fiscal
Shoot, I know, it says two different things.
How about,
I think he meant FY 25. Shoot,
he's got it here, it's 25 and 26. Is attached.
he does, okay, well, let's
It's
just
just up here, it's typed up.
go with what he put, if not, we'll bring it back. Maybe.
Well, I would make it.
Yep,
Been properly moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to agenda item number 9, board policy.
These are just updated policies that have gone through the policy committee or come from ISB, or the state has said you will change these things today, kind of things, right?
that's accurate.
So I would make a motion to approve the updated first reading of the attached policies.
I'll second.
Been properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And I'll take board comments.
So, if nobody has anything, I have a whole list of fun stuff to talk about. So, I had someone approach me and ask about a 4-day school day. I said, that's a really interesting idea, and I will share that idea with this board and say, hey, if you think that's a good idea, we should pursue that. I did throw the idea that, you know, if you're a family and you don't have childcare, what would you do on that day if there is no school? Because that's probably a big concern for you. You're not just gonna let your 7-year-old kid run around your house by themselves, so. And then I had the ability to watch the 2 teams that we have in the Lego First League, which are the 6th grade team and the 8th grade team. The 8th grade team was successful and they won their competition with 310 points, so they took first place, so they moved up to state, which is really fun to watch them kind of work together, figure out how to solve their problems, and then everybody kind of plays a different role. That was a lot of fun. It was in Waterloo. At Hoover Elementary of all the places, or middle school, excuse me, Hoover Middle School of all the places, was kind of neat. So it was a lot of fun to watch that happen.
So it's more complex than a $3 product.
I mean, I don't know that I would say it's more complex. I would definitely say it's very different, and you have to think about it. But yeah, they worked really hard. They have a room over here, Mr. Marbury is their coach. Did a fantastic job of empowering them, building them up, and helping them be successful. Both teams really well. So I think they had a lot of fun, and they were all really well-behaved kids, and nobody was running up and down the halls or punching anybody or doing anything they weren't supposed to. When it was time to clean up the room, they picked it all up, everything in the garbage, took all the stuff back with us. So it was really good to see. So
I will add to your 4-day school week.
yeah.
I have been speaking to Dr. Burnett about that since he came aboard. I've heard many great things. I've actually talked to a handful of staff members.
So there's a school that's doing it in Iowa, right?
There's a lot.
Eight districts right now, currently 8
And
districts.
some of the feedback I have heard from some of the teaching staff is if they do professional development, usually once every 3 weeks or however it is.
Yeah.
They had even suggested that let's make that work day on a Monday, make our day off Monday, so that it's a lot easier for people to go to work on Monday than it is to have Friday and have to come back in. There's been a lot of really good feedback on those things, so I think it's worth considering, especially for small town communities. The feedback on the daycare thing you mentioned, we now have a whole bunch of high school kids that have the day off, looking for something. So
That could be.
there's a lot that are willing to help out the daycare centers and so on and so forth. Is there any further comments?
Does it help with teacher retention?
It helps with recruiting.
Yeah.
As far as retention, I think that's a fair assumption, but it's kind of early to have, long-term numbers.
So I think that's a really interesting question. So if you think about what district you want your teacher, right? And maybe you're a 1st year or 5th year and you think about what district do I want to start a family in and kind of settle down? Because most teachers, like once they get a job, they typically don't jump ship like administrators do every couple of years, right? So I mean that in a nice way, in a nice way. They just move on to different. But anyway, I mean, that's a great question. So like if they say, hey, I could have a 4-day work week, I mean, that's a huge thing as a positive, and maybe we can't say we're gonna get big raises every year, but we have this really unique situation.
You probably just go longer into the calendar year, right?
Yeah, we probably have to, I'm guessing.
So,
We'll
well,
actually lengthen the day in a lot of these districts.
yeah, that's been one solution, length of day, and then they occasionally pick up So not every week would be 4 days. It would occasionally have a fifth day in the schedule. So those are some of the solutions. And then, yeah, and then you could extend a little bit on the beginning of the year.
It's their day.
So I'd have to look at that, but I would say
Cardinal School District was approximately 45.
45 minutes. Yeah, that sounds right.
And they were speaking very highly of not only teacher retention, but open enrollment in for students that were looking for something different, that wanted the extra day at college or something like that.
Or if you're an employee, right, and maybe you have a 4-day work week, and you're like, well, look, now we've got more family time. I don't know if there's employers in the area that do that, but that might be something they may think as well.
I remember when I was in high school, I went to Nevada High School here in Iowa, and we got special permission from the state like 30 years ago, when I was in high school, to go like an extra 7 minutes or something. So we got 4 days off or 3 days off the school year. So I think, is 180 days, is that right?
Well, we're hours.
Oh, okay.
So it's 1080 for hours. And so when we have a little extra built in for snow days.
Okay.
So
So I think we should task somebody with starting a focus group to figure that out. It's a great idea.
Any further comments, Dr. Schroeder?
No, not in regard to that.
He's like, I don't care about 4-day work.
If there's any other further comments, if there's none, we'll take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 6:29.
A second.
Probably moved in second, all in favor,
Aye.
state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Hey, is everybody know the Pepco game? I still going on for the 8th graders.
but weren't they in New Hampshire?
8th grade?
Yeah,
Yeah, so my son played, but they were playing in high school, not in the comic gym.
So two groups went to New Hampton, I thought. but
What's that?
Here we drove to New Hampton.
Oh,
Okay.
Said it started at 4:30.
she did. Well, I talked to my right before at 5:20. They were just about to start, so I might catch it. I
Okay.
think he's on the B team, and he only gets to play.
Half
Correct, that's exactly right. He gets to play one half of one game. And so